But let's move on. You have another article over here that you wrote on the EMPOWERed Substack. I'm going to have this article linked in the YouTube video description as well. I highly recommend everybody to go and read this. This article is called Presumed Guilty: The Waterloo District School Board's Assault on Liberalism. And I'm just going to read something really quick here, and then we can talk about this article. It talks about policy AP 1235, and this is what it says. The policy states that if a student does not wish to inform his or her parents, then the school may proceed to implement a host of psychological intervention, including name and pronoun changes. These are brand new, and the long-term consequences of which cannot be possibly known, all without so much as a heads up to mom and dad. And then you say, let's ignore the fact that non-abusive, loving parents may be cut off from their children during a confusing and stressful period of time while they are making what is potentially one of the most life-altering decisions possible. And let's cast aside for a moment the utter humiliation of parents as school administrators and teachers unilaterally exclude them from a conversation that may end up denying them the possibility of experiencing the joy of grandchildren. So this policy, we're talking about socially transitioning kids at school, and how the Waterloo District School Board has a policy that essentially drives a wedge between the students and the parents, and basically presumes that all parents are guilty and may bring harm to their children if they do not agree. Yeah, let's talk about this article, Geoff.
Well, again, this is just part of one big assault on liberal values, right? Our cultural inheritance of Western civilization is built upon some foundational values. Free speech is one of them. I think it's a good case to be made that that's the progenitor of all the others. But we have various things like the rule of law, due process, and here I talk about the presumption of innocence. Why is the presumption of innocence so important? Where did that come from? Why do we value that so much? And the school board, and again, this social justice movement really wants to dispatch with all of these liberal values. So this is something Eric Kaufman calls cultural socialism as opposed to cultural liberalism, right? Where now you can get rid of these things like due process and presumption of innocence in favor of sort of vague things that can be abused, like harm reduction. And again, it's whoever, the government can decide what harm is, what harmful speech is, and then shut down their opponent. It's really that simple, and I can't believe people are falling for it. In the idea of being nice and presenting harm, it's like, well, whoever the government deems, because obviously silencing someone for speech, a citizen, that does harm, but no one seems to care about that when it's actual concrete harm. So, and as you mentioned, the example I used was policy AP 1235, which again takes the position of presumed guilt of parents. So if a child says, yeah, I want to take on new pronouns, I want to start experimenting with my gender identity at school, but I don't want my parents to know. Again, the justification that they use is that, well, it may not be safe. Parents may be a danger to a child if they start identifying in a different gender identity. Now, this is completely unacceptable, David. There is no way that without any evidence, you exclude parents from such an important and critical change in a child's life that can have consequences. As we know, there is a possibility that once they go on that track, that can lead to medical transition. Probably not that often, but it has happened, right? And again, this is all very new I don't think any of these experiments in changing people's identities, these are not rigorously randomized controlled trials experiments. These are coming out of what I would call non-science, pseudoscientific areas of the academy. And they're just being pushed through education schools into our schools, and parents are being fed. And the justification is parents might be a danger. This is a presumption of guilt. We all need to recognize it as such. This is a rejection of a founding principle of a free liberal society with the presumption of innocence. And we all just got to start naming this and say, no, this can't stand. We can't do this. Right? And so that was kind of the key point of this argument, was that we're trusting everyone else. It seems to me like, well, I guess all the other kids at school will now go by this new name. I mean, isn't it possible that some of those kids will beat that kid up? I mean, all the other teachers, all the staff. I mean, if they go on a field trip, I mean, other people visit the school. It just seems like everyone is fine except the parents. So what's the real? It doesn't make any sense when you start to interrogate or walk through it, you know? So that's really kind of, and then I kind of, I end the article, or it's part of a speech I gave actually, but I ended on kind of giving them the benefit of the doubt and walking through it. Well, let's say it does work. Well, there are consequences to that too. I don't know if you want to talk about that or not.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to talk about the consequences, but before we do that, I just want to let parents know there's a difference between policies and there's a difference between procedures. Policies are open to public scrutiny when they're made, but procedures are not open to public scrutiny. Procedures are derived from policies, the school procedures, and this is a school procedure. It's AP 1235, and the procedure is kind of like the law, which means it must be followed to a T. The other thing that people who are listening should know is that AP 1235 not only encourages teachers not to communicate with parents, but actually encourages the student to disclose their alternative identity to anybody other than the parents. So any other school staff, counselor, therapist, whatever, whoever's there, they encourage that. They encourage self-ID behavior. This is essentially what it is, self-ID. And one of the immediate impacts of this self-ID behavior is allowing boys to go into the girls' change rooms and washrooms, all the way to putting the kids down a road that will medically transition them. So this kind of stuff has immediate impact in the schools. I know after speaking to students, boys are not comfortable with girls coming into their washroom or going in there as well, because in an age, like you said, you're presumed guilty. I don't think any boy wants to be accused of any harassment. And then I don't think, of course, any girls are comfortable with boys invading their space. However, like I said, the school board allows this kind of behavior to happen and keeps secrets from parents. And I think this is a big problem. So let's talk about, some of the problems that this procedure, this non-negotiable public scrutiny, cannot talk about it, and everybody must follow. This is upheld by the Director of Education, Jiwan Shanika, and it's written with all the staff members. He kind of oversees the staff members, and they write these procedures that are derived from policies. So let's talk about some of the problems like you've mentioned.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. I didn't know the difference between the policy and procedure, so that's learn something every day. So yeah, I went on in this piece to to say, okay, let's give them the benefit of the doubt and forget about the presumption of guilt here and just say, okay, how is this actually supposed to help students? Okay, so let's assume we don't want the parents to know, and we're going to have a safe space at school where the child can live as their true self, and that's supposed to benefit the child. Let's just step back here for a second. Okay, what we're saying to the child is that we are going to help you live a double life. You are going to have one life, one identity, maybe even a different name at school. And when you go home, at the end of the day, you have to shift back to a different one. What is the evidence? Well, I just can't imagine there's any that living a double life can be healthy in any way. It just cannot be possible. I think we have to, it just seems obvious and logical that encouraging students to lie to their family is not only just a horrible policy, just on the face of it. I mean, I can't believe I'm saying this now. That's how it's like, you know what, it's okay. We're going to help you live a lie. I guess that's kind of relating back to the first post, is that we're going to help you live within this lie, and you are going to live a double life now. And we're going to help you do that. Right. And I thought we long ago decided that it wasn't good to help people stay in the closet, right? We want to help them come out. You know, for example, if a child is gay, we should help them accept them, right? We should not be forcing them to stay in the closet and then like keep secrets from the parents. So it's just a very misguided policy. I mean, even if we're assuming, let's assume good intentions, they're trying to help. Can we not revise this to say, okay, we're going to have, okay, maybe a social work or some sort of assessment of the home life, so that we can open a line of communication, so that we can, as quickly as possible, close this gap and diminish this double life so that they can live authentically, right? That seems like the humane and just and right thing to do. But I don't know of this at all. Maybe you've seen it, but I'm not aware of any procedures or policies that would make every effort to remedy this. I mean, I'm sure there are probably teachers who would want to do this. I'm sure there would be people who would realize this is a terrible idea. But the policy, as they're constructed, seem like they are designed. And again, this is maybe an uncharitable interpretation, but they seem like they're designed to drive a wedge between parents and children.
Absolutely. And you know, if their life at school is so great and they're finally living their true selves, why not tell the parents, hey, this is working really well. This is what we found that your child is really accelerating in. Mm-hmm. You know, they're really, not only are they
thrilled to learn that there's this great intervention and how good their children are doing now.
Yeah, I mean, just it could be like anything else. Let's say a child learns a musical instrument, right? And it's like, no, you can only play at school. And they're like, don't tell your mom and dad, you know, at home you're not allowed to play, mm-hmm. you know. And you tell the parent, if you tell the parent, hey, Johnny is really good at playing guitar, you should look into buying a guitar, right? Because mm-hmm. he's very talented. Great, right? Yeah. But yeah, it doesn't make any sense. It's really attempting to undermine parents. The school mm-hmm. is stepping in as the authority. They're stepping in as the experts, mm-hmm. and they're trying to act like they are the parent over here. And I just think that's, first of all, incredibly wrong. It's disrespectful to parents. Mm-hmm. It's disrespectful to the kids. And in my opinion, the school board and the director, this is just disgraceful behavior mm-hmm. on their part. And I can't believe these kinds of policies exist, these kinds of procedures in writing. I think this is grounds for resignation. To do this kind of stuff, to take parents out, this is ground for resignation. And like I said, I want everybody to understand these procedures, they're upheld by the Director of Education. All the schools in Ontario have a policy and procedure similar to this. This is not something...
This is Canada-wide, really. I mean, other than, I think, New Brunswick and Saskatchewan have started to intervene, but it's nationwide.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the things that you've mentioned, I'm happy that provinces are beginning to notice. I'm happy that parents are speaking out. Parents are going to the Million March protest, and they're standing up to protect their kids. And I just wanted to let parents know one thing. I highly recommend, I know this is pretty basic stuff and parents already know this, but if you don't spend time with your kids, somebody else is going to spend time with your kids, and somebody else is going to fill their head with alternative knowledge. And as we see right now in education, that alternative knowledge means painting parents as harmful to their kids and driving a divide. And I think more than ever, this is a time to really get to know your kids. This is a time to love your kids, to spend time with them, especially if they're vulnerable. I think this is one of the things that everybody can agree on, especially, people in education and parents. Kids are vulnerable. However, the education leaders know this, and I think what they're doing is they're weaponizing this vulnerability and using it against the parents.
Yeah, and I think one thing we haven't talked about is the unions. Because I don't know even how many teachers are on board with this, right? I think there's a lot of them who aren't happy with what's going on, but they know their job is at risk. If they speak out, they have to be very careful. So I think that's something we need to have a discussion about, is the way that unions are no longer involved in collective bargaining as their chief activity. They are more involved as political instruments, pushing a very far left agenda that is deeply unpopular. And we're seeing the consequences of that. They're kind of playing a long game with our kids, I think.
Absolutely. So Geoff, I just wanted to thank you for writing these articles. Like I said, these articles are going to be in the description of the YouTube video. I highly recommend anybody listening, go subscribe to the Substack. It's free. It's the EMPOWR Substack. Like I said, it's called Educating Minds, Parents of Waterloo Region. It's a grassroots collection of parents and citizens committed to education and liberty. It has public letters and information. Geoff, your articles really grabbed my attention. I'm extremely happy that I had you on today just to talk about your articles. Honestly, keep up the great work. It's really an honor chatting with you. It's an honor fighting alongside you for the protection of the kids. Is there anything else that you would like to mention before we wrap things up that you feel like hasn't been talked about?
Not really. I think we've covered a lot of ground, and I just wanted to say the same to you. Thank you very much for all the hard work you do. I think your videos are having an impact, keeping the feet to the fire, so to speak, of our governments and our local institutions. The school board needs to be held accountable. I think it's just a matter of people knowing what's going on. Most people don't pay attention. So I think we just need to keep working to get the message out. So thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's great. We got a great group of parents. Parents are beginning to wake up. I'm very encouraged by parents like yourself and, anybody that speaks out. Different people are good at different things. Some people are very good at writing. Some people are very good at speaking. There's been delegations at the Waterloo District School Board where parents are coming to speak out and to speak against what's happening. Ladies and gentlemen, if you've made it this far into the episode, I just wanted to thank you. Please feel free to share these videos because, the censorship is pretty hard. And I think parents really need to know what's happening inside the schools. This information is not just for the Waterloo District School Board. We use them as an example because it's the school board that we belong to, but this is all across Canada. These ideas are in the education. They're deeply rooted, and we need to talk about them, bring them to light, and expose the lies and the hypocrisies and the things that our kids are experiencing. Once again, thank you for everything, and looking forward to the next one. Take care.